Hi, good morning. This is CJ, your founder of Homeowners for Justice, host today for Weekdays Live. And I know we're just a couple minutes late. Here's the issue. We have gotten some really powerful information, and I'm scrambling to get it put together for today's show. Pretty much these shows get together in the morning. So today I want to cover a few headline news. We got to always remember that everything we're struggling with, the underlying reason is the money. It is all about the money. It's about the facts that every Federal Reserve note that we use as a medium of exchange around this entire planet gives interest to a private party. It's a debt note. And everyone, you and me and everybody else on the planet, is at the mercy of the central bankers. So understand, it is all about the money. But we need to fight the fight that we're fighting right now to stop the foreclosures. And I've gotten a document list of violations that owners can understand, and I want to spend today going through this list in an understandable way. And I know we'll have presentations again, but you've got to start hearing this and using it and starting to understand what we're doing. Yesterday, I put out the call for links to our senators and our House of Representatives. So I have a senator. You guys got to help me. Help me get these links out to the public. Who are these people? Who are our elected representatives? So send me those links. I'm going to be sharing the link for all of the senators in the United States. Let's start there. And then brass knuckles. This is brass knuckles time, guys. You got to understand, and if you've been following this at all, you know that the people don't have very many friends. We don't have any friends, it looks like, at the federal level. Certainly Obama and all of the people he's appointing are not our friends. I apologize, it's not an R&D. Remember, we're not Republican or Democrat. Are they for the people, or are they playing into the hands of the banks? Have they been bought off already? And so what I'm going to bring today is the people have to fight. We have to fight back ourselves. This is how we're going to do it. I'm going to give you an overview of an insider SB 900. This is the rule, the law that was put into effect starting January 1st in California. Many of the provisions completely reflect the consent judgment. And I want you guys to start to really understand the level of what is going on. So we're going to talk about those consent judgments just a bit. I've got a document overview. We've been talking about suspicious documents from the owners. I decided that what we were trying to do was just too complicated. So this is simplified. This is just a simple list of the defaults, the fraud, the faults that may or may not be in your documents. And so we'll go through that list today. I want to show you how I've set it up, and I expect and hope to get feedback. I want feedback from anybody watching. Is it too complicated? Is it not good enough? Should we add this? Should we take that out? Come on, this is our working session today, okay? And then Linda's agreed. She sent me some damning court evidence, and I wanted her to talk to you about this, because you need to understand that the damning court evidence is what caused the United States judge to issue the consent judgments. It's why the Attorney General signed off, okay? The AGs signed off because they looked at the consent judgment and they said, right, if these banksters actually followed these rules, I'd be happy about it. And so what our job is today is to show them with this suspicious document overview that they are not following that rule. They are not following the consent judgments. That is the point. That's the point. So I'm going to go over that today. Sorry, I get a little worked up. I'm mad. I'm mad as a hatter, as you can probably tell. Okay, so a quick reminder before we step into these. I want to put on the screen. These are the people that are for the people. Elizabeth Warren, William Black, Sherrod Brown, he happens to be labeled a D in Ohio. Chuck Grassley, he's an R in Iowa. Neil Barofsky, Democracy Now! These are organizations and people that support us, the people. Let's connect. Help us connect with them. a quick review of events. And one of the reasons I was just a little late today is that actually Occupy Mendocino in Mendocino County, California, small county, powerful group of activists, and they are making a difference. And they have been working with me, demanding I help them, and I want to help them, and so I have. And that is they want to make a presentation today to the supervisors. Tomorrow we're going up and I'll be there with them. We're making a presentation of the suspicious documents and what we've collected and the laws. You're going to see how I've put this together so that it works for everybody in California, and we can easily connect that and make it work for everybody in the country. So the fact is, Democracy Now! Is meeting. If you're interested, get down to Corte Madera. We'll watch the movie Heist, and frankly, I'm going to take that discussion afterwards, and we're going to make a strategy session. How are we going to get this out to the people? Because it's every person on the planet is suffering under the boot and heel of central bankers and the creation of credit for their private profit, skimming off you and me. We're getting skimmed and scammed. That is the bottom line. And then, as yesterday we talked about connecting the dots, I want to review that real quickly. We have the notary complaints, the owner's suspicious documents that we're going over today, and we're working on getting all the counties. There's probably about, if 4 counties have done the audits, then 3 or 4, then there's 3,096 counties left in the country. There's 3,100 counties in the country that need to do these documents if that's what it's going to take to get the foreclosures to stop. I'm still working on trying to get the attorney firms to step up and do the MERS County lawsuits on contingency basis. And we're focused on funneling this information into at least California's statewide grand jury. Let's see if other counties and states have that, the grand jury statewide available to their people. So, quickly now, back to the show today. I want to talk real quickly about a couple of things going on. I've been screaming about this for years. If you know me and been listening to me, I know you've heard this before, and that is the whole point is that they are going to take the land. It's a land grab. And so guess who's buying? And you're going to read, prices are up and everything is hunky-dory. And of course, as home prices do rise in areas across the country, people that were upside down can turn right side up and either keep the house or sell without having to sell short and getting dinged on their credit. But the point is that the issue is, it's not the people that are buying. I mean, some are, but the vast majority, a significant percentage of the money flowing in to the real estate market and homes are hedge funds. I cynically say that they just are backed by the banks because they want to securitize the rental contracts. And however, if you look at this article, as you skim down it, you'll discover, which I know because I'm an investor. I own a few rentals myself. This is the point. It used to be that most of the people that were millionaires in this country actually owned rental property. Now you got to be a banker. You got to be working for them. And because so many of the small investors who had a few rentals have been just bankrupted. The values have fallen. They can't get loan mods because they're investors. They're just crucified. And that is the point. They're ruining the middle class. The money stepping in are the hedge funds. But just understand, I already know what they're starting to find out. You read down, 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the article, and it talks about, well, the profits just aren't there. It's not an easy business, and it's not a stock or bond, and it's not something that they can just fractionalize and create great wealth with. So I suspect that several of them will, and the investors behind these hedge funds will discover that this was a disappointment. Nevertheless, they're taking the property, and we can get our brass knuckles, because I swear if we can prove that these foreclosures that they're buying cheap were not legal foreclosures, and the people should get that stolen property back, think about how that might play out. Just think about that. And if we can put the scare into them that this is what the owners are rising up to do, we might be able to save more of our property for the owners. People send me links all the time. I want to quickly play just maybe 30 seconds of this, not very much. In fact, I'm not sure I'm going to play any of it. We've got so much today. But this is a little video. It's about 43 minutes long. I think I'm going to just summarize it. All wars are banker wars. It completely goes through the history of this country and the world and all the wars, and basically gives the evidence that these wars were caused by central bankers and were created and started because the bankers control the governments and they want to create the money for their private profit. I have not second sourced it, but I would be fascinated to hear anyone else's analysis on each of these statements. The video goes through and makes statement after statement after statement that this is, and they cite examples. This is why the war was started. This is why that president was killed. This is what's going on. This is why we had World War I, World War II. So I really challenge you, if you have the time, listen to it and assume it's all false, and let's figure out if this is really true or not. I'm going to link it onto the live stream so that you can watch it there. I want to link and move on into here's the senator list of senators nationwide, so you can find out who your senators are. And then I recommend we actually start calling them, emailing them, get on their website, send them information about these suspicious documents. The fact is, somebody said, Matt said yesterday on the little video we played, that the senators and the Congress people in Florida have not heard from the owners. Well, let's make them hear from us. So that's the challenge of today. Let's get our voices heard. So every senator, I'm going to have a special government page, how to find your senators, and I will make that on my website. I think I already have a target government. I apologize, I'm not sure exactly what it says. I haven't looked at it in a couple of, months. So I will look at that. I will put this link there. Any other links you send me, they will get there, so that we can all start to really, rattle their chains. Let's let them know the owners don't like this. Now, what we need to understand, and I want to move into the audit that was done for Williamson County, because from this audit came a couple of more ideas for the suspicious documents that I want you to show you what I've put together. When you look at this, by the way, is linked to my website on legal action by state down in Texas. It's the audit, and this goes through, they actually reviewed, and I have right here on the first page the executive summary. There were 5,782 MERS-related assignments filed in the real property records of Williamson County during the target audit period from October 9, 2010 to October 9, 2012. They detailed a review. They reviewed, out of those 5,700 plus assignments, they reviewed 1,576 assignments and their associated documents. And they found that the MERS practices, the problems with these documents, and this is the suspicious documents list that you can do on yours, I'm doing on mine. We can all look at them and say, hey, this is suspicious, that's suspicious. 4, 5, 6 things. Here's what they talk about, the robo-signing. This is when signers actually sign without even knowing what they're signing and not caring. And the point of that is not so much, believe it or not, that somebody else signed their name, somebody else's name, although that's outrageous to us. The point is that by signing that document and having it notarized, they claimed that they had the authority, had reviewed all of the documents giving them that authority to sign there. And that is the point. They didn't review it. And that's what we're going to talk about with Linda later today. So that when we can prove robo-signing, forged signatures, the 6 different signatures of Lauren Stone, that's what I'm going to go through real quickly today and show you how you can use that to fill out the suspicious documents list. The fact is, when they've robo-signed, then we know that they didn't review the documents, and that's a violation of the consent judgment. So these are we're trying to connect the dots and get this information to people that might care about it, like our district attorney, the attorney general, our grand juries, investigations, whatever we can do to get this on the docket of officials that can actually help homeowners. I want to skip down here. I'm clicking through down here to page, here we go. Here's one of the biggest issues that they found. This is the MERS assigned deed of trust. And in this case, out of the 1,587 audits, 1,237 did this. And this is one of the things I've now listed on our suspicious documents. The biggest issue, I want to just read this, the biggest issue we see in the instances of the deed of trust is the assignment by a party claiming to use the certifying official designation of MERS. We've talked about the MERS cap. Okay, the guy actually is an employee of B of A, takes that cap off, he puts on MERS, he says, gee, now I'm MERS. And so now I'm going to assign this interest in this deed of trust and note, because assigning the deed of trust is crazy. It's the whole note, it's that payment stream, it's that obligation that's important. The deed of trust, remember, or the mortgage in those judicial states, it's just the instrument, it's just the string that attaches that loan to that property as collateral. It's just the attachment. So who cares what, basically, if you're going to assign the string to somebody, what difference does that make? You have to assign the note to somebody. And the whole point here is that MERS does not have the authority to assign the notes. So it's real easy. You look at your document and you say, gee, does it say assigning the note on it? It does. Oops, violation. That's the point. And he's quoting some law here. The persuasive argument arises from several court cases, he quotes some, wherein MERS can only assign what it has interest in, which in their deeds of trust and mortgages, they said, okay, MERS, the borrower that signs gives MERS the authority to do this. But the only authority in those deeds of trust was to assign the deed of trust and not the promissory note. And so, as you'll see, he states here the note and mortgage are inseparable, just like I said. The former as essential, the note, the latter as an incident. The latter is a string, the note is, the important piece. This is what people want, and the collateral is backing the note, the payments. And so an assignment of the note carries the mortgage with it, while an assignment of the mortgage, like he says, a loan, is a nullity. And this is a quote from a judgment, a court decision. So here you go. That's a big, huge issue. And you can read this on the face of the document. When you look at, you don't even have to print the document. You can just go in the recorder's office, look it up, and read it. And you'll see that document will say, obviously 9 times out of 10 or even higher, that MERS has assigned the note. That's a big issue. They talked about suspected forgery. We call that robo-signing. And again, like he said, the whole point is that the robo-signature, the forged signatures, indicates a huge failure in the correct documents. That's the point. So, and then suspected notary fraud, and we're working on that with the notary complaints and asking from the Secretary of State the proof of signatures, going to the notaries and getting the notary journal entries for the signers. We're trying to actually prove that the people that signed were not the people that were supposed to be signing. Putting that evidence together and then, plastering the planet with it. That's the point. So here we go. Here's on page 23. So you can look at this yourself, because I want to move quickly into what I've put together for the suspicious documents. And then we'll have time to talk about the whole thrust of this, reviewing the documents and making sure that the foreclosing entity had the authority, because they didn't. That is the point. So here on page 23, it's actually page 24 of the PDF file, but on page 23 of the audit, in their table C, out of the 1,567 documents audited, sorry, I think I said 87 before, okay, over 1,500, of the MERS officer assigned assignments where they moved the note, that's 1,237. A suspected robo-signing, forged signatures, 1,499. A suspected notary issues in all categories, 1,421. I mean, we're talking almost 100%, okay? 95%, 98%. Here's the question we should be asking of every one of our officials, the supervisors, the DAs, the sheriffs, the AGs, everybody involved on an elected basis, our recorders. If this audit was done in my county, would you, recorder, DA, attorney general, supervisor, would you have any questions that this whole game was fraudulent and that they intended to do this? Is this beyond a reasonable doubt? Is this fraud beyond a reasonable doubt? And that's my question. I believe it is. I believe that the preponderance of evidence proves fraud beyond a reasonable doubt. I could be wrong, but that's my analysis. And so here we go. When we go into the, I want to review real quickly. I told you I had the insider title report. This is an insider overview of the SB 900, and this is done by Nationwide Title Clearing. I just love it. Thank you so much again, everybody sending me these links. Keep them coming, because together, this is our working session. Together we can nail it, and we can stop these foreclosures, and we can get restitution for the people. The whole point is these foreclosures stemmed from fraudulent loans. Let's never ever forget that, and that's the next piece. We're going to do this to try to stop auctions. Then it's up to us to connect the link backwards from these fraudulent foreclosures to the fraudulent loans, the toxic loans, like Catherine Austin Fitts so classically says. It's fraudulent inducement. Why aren't we talking about that? Because that is the point. Nevertheless, back to Nationwide Title Clearing. So this is what this is a white paper written for insiders, servicers, and title companies about California's SB 900, preparing for California Homeowner Bill of Rights. This is really classic. So I want to just point out, I'll have that link up soon. I'm sorry I haven't linked it yet. Like I said, I've been busy. This does provide, SB 900 went through various foreclosure items like 2429, and you can read it through in the SB 900, which I do have linked. They actually say, okay, this law now is going to read this and this and this, and they've made changes to what we typically term the foreclosure laws. It does provide homeowners with an impressive collection of rights. So let's use them as owners. The first thing they tell the servicers, be prepared to provide documents. They want the copy of a borrower's promissory note, the deed of trust, a copy of any assignment of the borrower's mortgage or deed of trust, and then it says required to demonstrate the right of the servicer to foreclose. So right there, you can just ask, get this. You can go to the recorder's office. I highly recommend you do that. And just because there is an assignment doesn't mean that it demonstrates the right of the servicer to foreclose. Put our thinking caps on. But this is what's going to be required now of servicers. A copy of the borrower's payment history. Moving on, the single point of contact. Oh, and dual tracking. It is not to dual track. And this is a nice summary of the law. And if you find the law a little dry and hard to read, and they're referring back and forth to this, that, and the other, just read this. Because basically, one of the least popular of servicing techniques handled by Section 7 of the bill is the dual tracking, which means somebody's talking to the owner on the phone. You know, the right hand's on the phone and the left hand's foreclosing, and taking the property. And they're saying, moreover, if the borrower submits a complete application for the first lien modification, you can't file a notice of default, blah, 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 you can read it. You can read it for yourself and follow it for your own benefit. Then the single point of contact. We call it the SPOC, S-P-O-C, single point of contact. So who is your SPOC? And you will discover that the workaround that the lenders are using, the servicers are using, I hear this complaint all the time. Well, now they have a team of, 50 or 100 or 300 or who knows how many people, and theoretically, because they're on the team, they're my single point of contact. That's not working well. So that is the point, and of course, you can complain about that. I encourage everybody, anytime, everywhere, file an OCC complaint. And remember, when you file the complaint, we're talking about the master servicer. So if you're dealing with Greenpoint Servicing, file against the master servicer, Chase, whoever it might be. If you have Ocwen, file against B of A, because the master, you got to understand, remember we talked about this, the master servicer and then all these other entities are third-party servicers. They're third parties. The foreclosure trustees, all of them are third parties under the master servicers. The servicing companies, which are wholly owned subsidiaries by the banks, like Greentree and Ocwen and whichever ones they are, you know what they are. Whichever one you've got, it's a third-party servicer. So dig back through your file and find the master servicer, because the master servicer is never off the hook. Don't let them off the hook. And if you mention the third-party servicer, you may get shunted. I hear this complaint from people. They email me, well, I complained to the OCC and I mentioned Ocwen, and then they shoved me off to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Always go back to B of A. I mean, file against the third-party servicers with a CFPB, PB, but always go to the OCC with a master servicer, because it's only the OCC with the master servicer that can actually stop auctions. That's some of the benefit that we have. Okay, ensure your notice of default complies. So now remember, what we're looking at here is the insider information from the title company to the servicers. And it says, Bill Section 10, they're talking about SB 900, Section 10, provides that a trustee, mortgagee, beneficiary, or any of their agents must record a notice of default in the public record at least 3 months, blah, blah, blah. And it also provides that no notice of default may be recorded unless the filing entity is one of the following. 1, the holder of the beneficial interest under the mortgage or deed of trust. So this is where we fight them, because they are servicers and do not have the right to hold the beneficial interest. The original trustee or the substituted trustee under the deed of trust. The designated agent of the holder of the beneficial interest under the mortgage deed of trust, and this is where we hit them. This is where we have our suspicious documents. And then, of course, it goes on to exhaust all foreclosure, prevention alternatives, that kind of thing. I bring this to your attention, and here, before we go, here's the importance of competent and reliable evidence, and this competent and reliable evidence comes out of the consent judgments. Now, the SB 900, the people in California, copied that phraseology almost word for word from the consent judgments. And the consent judgments are when the judge told the master servicers, you have been bad. Bam! And you promise not to do that anymore. And they said, aye, and they signed. That was on April 4th, 2012. And of course, since then, they have completely violated everything. They just do everything the same, and the people are getting no justice. So the point is competent and reliable evidence. And we need, the owners, we need to hold their feet to the fire. This is the point. There's little doubt that the provisions in the California Homeowner Bill of Rights will materially alter the contours of the mortgage lending industry in this state. Yeah, like, let's make it honest. The trouble is, at this point, they're just violating with impunity. It's up to the owners now to stop that. So quickly, before we talk about the how we got there, I just want to show quickly, and probably not go through I'll do that tomorrow or the next day, of how you connect the dots from your documents to this overview. But I wanted to get up on the screen. This is what I've put together. I will link this on the website, and I appreciate anybody and everybody's feedback, because the more complete we keep this, but relatively speaking, simple and straightforward, because you got to understand, we have to understand it. Our supervisors, district attorneys, recorders have to understand it. And really what we want is a spreading of that understanding. Something that when we send this to Channel 7 on our side, that they'll go, wow, that makes sense. What? Are you kidding me? Look at these signatures. That's what I'm aiming for. So what I've done is just labeled page, just a front cover page. It's a suspicious document with the name, the date, your name, the property address, the date that you did the deed of trust, that you got the loan, and then you list the master servicer. So, okay, B of A, third-party foreclosure trustee like Recon Trust. You list your document list. Okay, I had an assignment, get the recording number and date. I had another assignment, recording number, date. I had a trustee substitution, I had a notice of default, notice of sale. That's what this list is for. And then these lists down here, the next ones, are whatever you've done about that. Did you file a notary complaint? Okay, label which one and when you filed it. Did you get have you found sample signatures? Have you gotten information about the different signature on your documents? So you can go to my website, you can go to Google. Google's a really good place to research signatures, believe it or not. And then this is what I wanted to focus on, because this is the list of suspicious issues. 1, the fake notarization, or the false notarization. So did that notary do false notarization? And I've gotten already Secretary of State judgments on false notarizations. It does come down, and the trouble is the penalty is like $750 or something against the notary. The person, the owner, then what's going to lose the house over that? And so this is connecting the dots. So we want to get all of these lists of suspicious issues out to the public. So the notarizations we're looking at, the signatures we're looking at, false signature, the impossible beneficiary designation. For example, when they say this note, and when MERS or somebody signs the note and deed of trust to an entity such as Bank of New York trustee of mortgage-backed securities, blah, 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 whatever the name is, that trustee, if you contact Bank of New York Mellon as trustee and say, hey, you're the beneficiary of this note and deed of trust, they're going to start screaming at you over the phone. They're going, wow, I'm a trustee of I can't be the beneficiary. Are you kidding me? I'm the trustee, and the actual real beneficiaries would be the investors of that trust. They call them the certificate holders. So those are impossible. Those are fake. They have made them up, and we need to bring that to their attention. Fake titles. Here's something. Some of you will have it, some of you won't. If it's not there, just put NA. it's not applicable. But if you have it, if you have anything, an assignment or a trustee substitution with an attorney in fact designation in the title of the signer, you go get on the recorder's, go to the recorder's office and make sure that there is actually a power of attorney filed and recorded, because it requires a recorded power of attorney. If that's not there, it's fake. They made it up. And they do this all the time. So we're educating. We have to educate all of our people. So help me. Here's another one. Virtually every securitized loan has violated the mortgage-backed security trust cutoff dates, because the cutoff dates for every loan that was securitized was typically that year, maybe 1 or 2 months after the loans were actually generated. So based on this date up here, where it says date of purchase and loan. Okay, so let's say that you took your loan out in July 2006. Okay, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that the mortgage-backed security didn't close until the end of the year in 2006. It probably closed much sooner than that. But nevertheless, 06, think that number in mind. You come down here and you look at the recording date of these assignments, and oh gee, they were recorded in 2010, 2011, 2012, 2009. Anything other than 2006 is a violation of the mortgage-backed security trust cutoff date. Bingo. It's that simple. The MERS conveyance from a defunct lender. Oh, this is great. If you look at the Lauren Stone, I was going to show it to you, but you can look at it yourself. They're an August 10, 2012, Countrywide Home Loans did an assignment. Excuse me? Countrywide Home Loans has been defunct for years. Obviously, on the face of the document. And when you have these violations like this, when they are blatant fake documents, then everything on that document, the notary, the signer, they're all suspect. And they all should be brought to prosecution. Now, in the grand juries, just think about this. The whole point is we're going to snag the little people, and then we're going to subpoena them, and then we're going to climb the ladder. Okay. So here's MERS. Two more. MERS receiving value. Can MERS receive value? If you look at every assignment that is MERS, it says for value received, the undersigned hereby grants, transfers, and assigns the deed of trust and the note. You look at it. The fact is, MERS has no authority ever, anywhere, ever, to receive any value for anything and to assign or transfer any note. They only have questionable authority to assign deeds of trust. I say questionable because bankruptcy courts typically have already said MERS can't do anything. Other courts, state courts and federal courts, have not been as universal. So the fact is, they certainly don't have any authority to receive any value. So just stick the document numbers in there. And then the last one is the contempt of court. These judgments went for the 5 major banks. They are linked on my website. And what I have done after this first page, I have written, so you just print these. These issues appear, the above issues that we just identified, appear to involve possible violations of. And I have written out for your review and everybody's review, it's about 3 pages. First, the penal code. Every state has a penal code. Then the California foreclosure laws that were changed by SB 900. That's 3, 4, and 5. I quoted some laws in California. This is a California specific. We'll work on getting these done for every state. I've quoted several laws and rulings coming out of that, where basically if a substitution of trustee is not valid, any resulting sale is void. And a substitution of trustee would be not valid because it was made by some entity who received the assignment that was crooked. So if you have a crooked assignment, you have a crooked substitution of trustee. And then you have a crooked notice of default and a crooked sale. You have stolen property. That's exactly what you've got. I've quoted some U.S. law about the servicer of a consumer obligation arising from a consumer credit transaction shall not be treated as an assignee of such an obligation. Servicer can't be assignee. Whoa. How many servicers are giving themselves the assignments? Here's some more U.S. law, and then I wanted to get down to this before we get Linda on the phone. Here's the consent judgment, and I just copied the whole thing because people need to read it, and they're not going to look it up. And here it is. Under the settlement term sheet, item 1A. This is it. This is the first section that the servicers said, we're going to agree to, and that they've not been doing. Foreclosure and bankruptcy information and documentation. Unless otherwise specified, these provisions shall apply to bankruptcy and foreclosures in all jurisdictions. This is nationwide, regardless of whether the jurisdiction has a judicial, non-judicial, or quasi-judicial process for foreclosures, and regardless of whether a statement is submitted during the foreclosure or bankruptcy process in the form of an affidavit, a sworn statement, or declarations under penalty of perjury. And here it is. A, standards of documents used. 1. Servicers shall ensure that factual assertions made in pleadings, bankruptcy, proofs of claim, or including any facts provided by servicer or based on information provided by the servicer, declarations, affidavits, sworn statements, blah, 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 are supported by competent and reliable evidence. That's it. So, Linda, this is CJ.
Yes, good morning.
Oh, thank you for joining us. I want to move into your explanation of the whole point of why we're actually at this point. This was precursor to the consent judgments, right? We're talking about the court.
Yes.
Yes. Explain to us a little bit about what these things, what we're going to be looking at next.
And as far as from our angle or what we see happening next in the overall situation?
Start from the beginning. I'm going to pull up here on the screen pretty quickly the consent judgment, or some of the recordings, the affidavits that you sent me.
Right.
Explain what those are, and then how they were a precursor to where we're at right now.
Right. Well, knowing now that tracing back, that there was massive securitization, and they didn't do their due diligence, didn't do what was required under the securitization issues. So therefore, now they're wanting to create the documents needed for foreclosure. And as we're getting in affidavit after affidavit, the one particular that I sent you was Beth Carell, where she shows how they were producing 18,000 signatures a month. I mean, even if in some of the other affidavits that I've read in the depositions, they tell how they do it. Maybe 2 or 3 other people in the same department are producing these, so that it's still getting down to an average of 300 a day at the most that they're signing, and they've got to pull it off of imaging. Then they look at their notes or their directions of, and this is per deposition. This is not my theory. This is what they've stated. They get told what they're supposed to apply from to whom it's supposed to be assigned, the entities involved, and whose signature they're supposed to pull off a database of signatures that they have and apply. And the whole thing is they've created a way to be able to create the foreclosure documents.
Right. Now this
fabrication.
Now, Linda, I have it up on page 6 on this deposition, and I'll link this also to our website. I just want to read. She's been asking questions, and they say, what documents do you sign? She says, I sign affidavits, deeds, assignments. And what else? Allonges. She's signing allonges. Is that even legal?
Well, if you look, some of them have say they're given the power by the board of directors of the bank, but there's no thing there that I was just reviewing one this morning. There's no power of attorney attached from the board of directors, or the resolution from the board of directors to do it. And what power does she have? Has she reviewed the documents? Again, the responsibility comes in here. Have they reviewed the documentation? That they can get up in a court of law and say, yes, we have reviewed it. This has happened.
Right.
That
So,
the substantiating evidence just isn't there.
so it's a little tricky to substantiate this type of evidence that Linda's talking about when you're doing 18,000 signatures a month.
Right, right. And their job was totally, at time and time again, they're trying to be real elusive and show that, yes, they were granted the authority and they do work indirectly for the bank, or this is what the bank hires them to do. But they still don't have the authority. They still haven't reviewed the information that they're putting their signature to.
Right, right.
How can you do that?
Right.
How can you conscientiously even do that?
Well, you certainly can't conscientiously, but you definitely can't legally. It's a legal impossibility. And so it's saying here, amongst all the management, we sign 18,000 a month, and that would include affidavits and assignments and the other documents you listed. She said everything. How many are on what you call the management? Let's see, 8. So 8 people.
I've seen 2 documents where they did a reconveyance or satisfaction of mortgage. So now I'm wondering, okay, are those documents even, do they have legal standing? Because
right.
the person who had the right to, didn't have the right to sign them.
Now, Linda, is it
So huge?
Exactly. In other words, all the documents are screwed up, not just the foreclosure documents. I've got owners that say, well, I've got robo-signing on my deeds of trust, on my grant deed. They're all over the place.
Absolutely.
And so this is why I would say that at least one indication of why people who don't even have a loan are getting foreclosed, because that is happening.
Right.
I laugh because it's outrageous. It strikes me funny, except it's horrific. People are losing their houses that have already paid their loan off, except it doesn't count, and some other bank comes in, files foreclosure, and takes it. What are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about it? So do you have any idea, Linda, of how many of these depositions? I know you sent me a couple. There must have been a lot, because wasn't this preceding the consent judgment on the banks?
Yes. So a lot of them were. There might have been some since that time, maybe Cynthia Riley's. Foreclosure fraud, foreclosure Hamlet has a lot of these deposition links on Scribe. Some of them had to be removed from Scribe. Also, ICE Legal did a lot of them. Picton Law Group has some. And I understand that there was one of Cynthia Riley that's been sealed, but if you're in a lawsuit, you certainly could have your attorney request to have that unsealed for your particular lawsuit. And she was notorious for signing the Wamucha Chase, particularly Alonges. But we have some from Kennedy, John Kennedy, who was with Wells Fargo. We have Michelle Solanger from Bank of America. Well, we have Bly from GMAC. Connected with us. Not that they actually work for those, but we can get depositions possibly from each of those out there. And I'd like to see that in a database, CJ, that people could access it on Freddie Mears' website. So we want to download those.
Absolutely. I mean, Linda and I have been talking about some kind of a database. And Linda, it occurs to me now that it's not just the owners, but the fact is, if we expect our district attorneys or our attorney general and their staff, or these officials to actually pursue justice for the owners, I mean, they have to research this too. They would have access to that database, right?
Absolutely.
That would really help build their case. So I just wanted to point out, I've got up here page 9 and 10. Here's the question. The question is, they're asking, again, this person under oath. I'll ask you about the first page of the affidavit. This is anything that's been notarized. It states that upon oath, you depose on personal knowledge. Did you have personal knowledge of everything that you testified to in this affidavit? That's on the recorded document. And she says, my personal knowledge is based on what they put in there, what my staff put in there.
Yes, and she doesn't question them unless somebody brings up an issue.
So you see, and I think Linda said this when we first started talking several months ago. You pointed out that even if they claim, the servicers claim, oh no, that person had the authority to sign because here's the authority that we gave them. The person that gave them that authority doesn't have that authority. If you can go back 2 or 3 levels of authority and discover that it's all fiction, right?
Right. One in particular was Deborah Lundgren. I traced it back 4 stages, and on the 4th stage, she had not been granted the power to do something by a superior, and she was doing documents before it was like a cutoff of 2 weeks, but still it was before she legally had the power to do it.
Well, and so and see, the point is, here's the point. Some of the stuff that Linda's talking about, it's pretty complicated. I mean, you have to really research this hard, right?
Yes.
And it takes hours. My goal is to cherry pick, okay? Let's cherry pick the simplest, obvious stuff on the face of the recorded documents that we can find, and let's work with that. Because there's just not enough auditors or time in the planet to actually help 1 million owners right this minute. Is that correct? How would you feel about that statement?
That's correct, but I think what our short-range, long-range view of looking at the documents and just making a very quick perusal of certain items and then linking those in when you see the links all over the counties, that'll be enormous right there.
What kind of things are you talking about, Linda?
Well, when I look at the document, who it was requested by, who it's to be returned to, aside from the normal things as to who the trustee is and who's signing it and what authority they claim, because it links it up with who that person really is and who they're really working for.
Oh, that's great. And see, that's something that I haven't even really focused on yet. So you're saying if we went through typically we're talking about the assignments, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yes. Well, in your state, I've broken it down to the NOD, the assignment of deed of trust, the substitution of trustee, and the notice of the trustee sale. There's
right,
different.
all 4.
They don't all contain the same information, but it should be interrelated. So if we just data enter all this information for each and every one of these, and then form a link that we can pull everything out. Well, this many people signed as this in this county, this many people signed, and then we find that same person wearing different hats. It's so much easier that way.
Is there any way that we could get volunteers to help do this? Do you have any idea?
The call is going out right now. I know of a gentleman in Orange County right now. He's doing some other things with the county. And he said, oh, yeah, let's get them to do this, that we can, if we have volunteers that can access the documents, not just that it's there, but the face of the documents, and just data entry. You don't have to be an auditor. Just give a spreadsheet of how you have to enter the data, and then let the program do the rest for us.
So here is something, correct me if I'm wrong, here is something that if we could create a data entry form that volunteers could, occupy volunteers, activists could go into their county's recorder office and literally just sit at a terminal and type in the words assignments or however they would find these documents. We'd have to figure that out. They could literally just write down the information.
Yes.
Because we don't even really need the documents. We just need the number and the information to actually start showing these kinds of connections that you're talking about.
Well, what we could do is reference the CFN, the number that the particular land record office has for it at the beginning, and then all the data. So if we want to pull something up in particular,
right,
the copies of the signatures, say we have all of Lauren's signatures,
right,
and
right,
we want to do a comparison, then we go into that program and all the signatures, and we'd have the connecting document that it was filed, and we could pull them up and print them out.
That is so really what I hear us talking about is what I would call the poor man's audit.
Yes.
Yep, because so many counties have been so ruined, and that's one of the big issues. How are they going to pay for this? Now, the fact of the matter is, here's what I'm thinking. What if we were able to put together a spreadsheet or the data entry form, whatever you talk about, however we organize that to collect the information and get these if you will, let's say they just do 1,000, 100, 500 documents. I don't know, some number that you think is appropriate, and then we can point out to that county the kinds of issues that these documents reflect, giving them a motivation, a reason to actually pursue it further and start to pay for professional help. What do you think?
Some county that is already open to this idea, and if we can offer that, naturally, the volunteers, there's going to be some expenses here, and if we can justify that we're going to give them data for them to be able to go, and then they can pull from that data and pull the actual documents at any time. I think that's probably the best way to go for right now, and to get immediate assistance.
Right. Because, here's the facts. When we try to go get, and I've got up on the screen again, the suspicious issues, because you've brought up more things now, like, that maybe we'll want to add to this. In the meantime, I think that the 8 or 9 that we've got, is a good start. If we can get volunteers, I've got volunteers chomping at the bit saying, help, we want to help. In fact, it was like almost half a year ago when I started, I called it this CFI investigation. Oh, I can't remember what it was. Anyway, some way to go in to look at the documents. But I was really discouraged because I didn't have a clear picture of what we could actually gain as owners by looking at the documents. Now we've gotten to this point where we actually have some clear purpose and focus and goal, and that we can generate a result from. So for example, there's activists in Santa Cruz, Santa Barbara, LA, Monterey, Mendocino County, these that just come off the top of my head, that would go into the recorder's office if we made it relatively simple. And they could do that like tomorrow. Take in the time, go in tomorrow, figure out some of this information.
What we want to do too, maybe for someone who was remote, would be to come, that's why we want a favorable county, to grant access to those things without having to pay it, to data entry immediately without making copies of the documents.
Well, yeah, exactly. See, if we're just collecting the data and we have the numbers, we don't need to make copies. Who needs copies? We can actually just record, a lot of these things. It's very obvious. And like Linda already said, if you write down, if in the data entry we know who the signers are, then in a spreadsheet you could just literally sort and pull up all the documents that had that signer on it. And I swear at that time, these activists could probably go into the recorder's office, the supervisors, and at least get the recorder to print those documents for free. For example, as a baby step. This is a baby step into getting a county to commit to. I was told that I don't even know for sure, but I was told that some of these audits are anywhere from $35,000 to $75,000, and so they're not inexpensive because you're looking at a lot of documents. But if we can collect, like Linda, you're talking about, well, how long do you think it would take for a volunteer to collect the data that you're asking for on one document?
On one document, they could enter it in a matter of minutes.
Okay, so let's say 10 minutes. So if we had one volunteer, they could do anywhere from they'd probably do it in less than 5 minutes, because literally you're asking them to do sort of what I've already set up a little spreadsheet to do.
An extended version of your spreadsheet.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, because I didn't put down who requested it, where is it mailed. I could add that. That's not a bad idea, but I didn't think it really mattered for the owner per se, but it would definitely matter on a large basis.
The documents, and we link it up with the foreclosing entities. Now we have a pattern of who they're using, and then all the robo-signers also fall in that pattern.
That's right. That's right. Oh, that's great. Can you, I think you've already sort of started on this data entry information. Haven't you started to put something together on that, Linda?
Yes, I sent you a summary of what I thought was important to look at in each of the filings. and ask for any suggestions of additions to it.
Well, let's say that an activist could do 10 documents an hour, and so that would be out of 1,500, that'd be 150 hours. Let's say you had 5 people, so that's 30 hours. That's a pretty significant time involvement.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's 4 hours a day for a week, but for 5 people.
Well, but now you might be looking at not just for one document. I think it's less than 5 minutes.
Yeah, probably.
Considerably less.
Yeah.
You could do it.
Well, I'm thinking out loud, and I know you guys watching are thinking with me. So give us feedback. Let us know if you're up for doing some of this work. One of the other issues that occurs to me is when you start having a bunch of volunteers in a specific recorder's office or looking at specific documents, it can be a little. How do you know which ones you've already looked at? How do you do that? And I don't know. Have you come up with any thoughts about that?
If you would go per day filing per diem each day, so that way, and keep a list, a running tally of what days have been covered.
So you start with the filings, for example, from October 9, 2010 to November 9, 2010. I mean, going down chronologically through the recorded documents.
Right.
That makes sense, and that way we can just track based on when they recorded these. Do you think we should start?
Database would also show if someone had replicated or was replicating.
Right, exactly, because the document numbers would be there and we could just eliminate duplicates. I'm just trying to make sure that the activists save time. That's what I think. This is brass knuckles time. This is time to stick on the brass knuckles and start pounding. So we're working on the tools that every owner can pound. Linda, I just so appreciate you joining us today and all the work that you've done. And we're going to, we will continue to give us, everybody in the country, these tools, because these are the tools the owners have to fight back. If any of you, Linda, you included, come up with anything else that is doable that would help us move this forward into getting this information out, I think, just like the auditor said for the Williamson County, he says, well, I think they started with a good idea. They were trying to, speed the process and stuff. They made some mistakes. I think that most of our public officials really do not understand the breadth of this mess. Is that your feeling too, Linda?
Oh, yes. They don't. Judges, whatever, they don't understand, and the elected officials. But the thing about data, everybody understands data. So we pull this all together, and we give them this person signed this many in this county, and, we have proof that they're a robo-signer.
The other nice thing that she's talking about, when this would be by county, except if you look at like Lauren Stone, you'll see that just the 15 documents I've got are just splattered all over the state of California. You've got San Diego, Stanislaus, San Francisco, Sonoma, Mendocino,
Well,
it's just everywhere.
To when you go to the officials, now we did this county, but this county also had this many, then it becomes cumulative.
Exactly. Then we bring the counties in together. That's why, really the thought is going to the state level as a grand jury, saying, okay, it's in all these counties, same signer all over the place. How are we going to get, some justice? And the number one thing we need to do right now, in my book, is stop the auctions. If we stop the auctions, then people can keep their homes. Then the next step is twofold: connecting the forged and fraudulent foreclosures backwards to the fraudulent toxic loans, so that the myth of these are just deadbeat owners gets demolished once for all. No, we're all victims of a massive crime. Okay, we connect backwards, but then we also connect forwards. How are we going to fix this? How are we going to get restitution for the people that lost homes? What are the tools? What are we going to do about it? And this is unknown, and we've got several ideas. but we so appreciate your participation. Thank you so much, Linda, for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Anytime, any day, just bring us more tools for the owner fight. Thanks, guys, and looking forward to tomorrow. We'll talk to you soon, and that's it for today. This is CJ signing off from Weekdays Live, Homeowners and Homeowners for Justice. We will prevail. Thank you.